is BBC 5 Live, available on the BBC iPlayer radio app. The Emma Barnett Show.
Good morning. This week with Chloe Tilley. Welcome to the programme. Now, campaigners are calling for specialist Lyme disease centres to be set up so that doctors can be trained in how to spot and treat patients who get the infection. Lyme disease is caused when a person is bitten by an infected tick, but diagnosing it can be so tricky because often the symptoms aren't very specific. It can just be a bit like tiredness or maybe flu. So official estimates say that around 3,000 people get it each year, but some experts think the true figure could be many thousands more. Now, the charity Lyme Disease Action says more investment into diagnosis and treatment is crucial. Well, in a moment, we'll speak to Andrew Gold, who is from the charity. He's on the line now. But first, let's speak to Nell McAndrew, model, TV presenter, of course, came to fame as Lara Croft in the video game Tomb Raider. Active runner. Many people will have seen her running marathons and all manner of things. And Nell, it was when you were out in the park exercising that this all began for you when you got Lyme disease?
Yes, I mean, I'm outdoors all the time, training myself or with my children. And this particular day, I remember it was a really hot day. I was out most of the day outside. I'd been training as normal. And so I didn't actually notice being bitten, which apparently is really common. And then I just remember that I did spot a bite on my leg, and it might not have been until that evening or even the next morning. And I monitored it because I just thought, it just seemed a bit of an odd bite. And
what did it look like? Just a normal bite?
Just a bite, really. I mean, you know, it's hard to know with anything, I think, and you just keep monitoring it and keep looking at it. And I'd asked a few other people as well. I said, have you had a bite like this? Or so close friends and family knew, the whole, all the different stages that I went through actually. And then I wasn't happy with how the bite was looking, so I went into a walk-in centre. It was a weekend, and I just thought for reassurance, because I thought that it looked like it was getting worse, not better. And they had a little bit of a dig around, and just because I just thought there might be something in there or something. Just even it's the tiny, it might have been like a dot just inside. And they reassured me that they couldn't see anything, and they dressed it for me. And then and that was it. And I thought, okay, it's going to heal now. But it didn't. It just seemed like it was getting worse. And then I do remember very specifically having different symptoms, like flu-like symptoms. I was waking a lot at night, an awful lot. I remember having dizzy spells. I'm someone I'm extremely active. I'm really, I'm pretty in tune with my body, and I'm always running about. I'm always exercising. I usually feel fit and healthy and well. So I really wasn't myself. I was exhausted. I was absolutely shattered. Admittedly, I'd got, a young child, and I was dashing about as everyone does. But it was more than that. And I certainly wasn't feeling well.
Did you link it to the bite in your mind at any point, or did you just think you got a bug?
I was a bit worried. I just, I was in contact with my mum a lot, and as you do now, I'm saying, well, this is my bite, this is what it looked like, and I was taking pictures because I wanted to show my mum it, because we don't live close by, and so monitoring it. It just looked like it was getting worse, and then I got a ring around it, which appeared, and that's when I got really worried, and I decided that I'd go straight to a walk-in centre. This was again on a weekend, and I was the last person to be seen that day. And I remember just thinking, I just need to see somebody. Just again, it's just reassurance. I just won't be able to sleep if I don't get somebody to just check it out for me. And straight away he said that I was the fourth person that day that he'd seen, and he said that. And I told him about the symptoms that I'd had as well. And he said, I'll prescribe you straight away with antibiotics. That would be Lyme's disease.
And how long after the bite was this?
I can't remember exactly the days, but it was definitely between 1 and 3 weeks after. So I would, by the time the bite had progressed, I would probably about a good two weeks maybe.
And did the antibiotics sort you out? Was that sufficient to treat you?
It definitely, well, obviously you've got to wait for it to sort of get into your system and start to work, but I think number one, I felt more reassured, that maybe this is what's wrong with me. When you're not feeling well, you need some reassurance, and you trust a doctor, you trust a medical, anybody in the medical profession who is going to know more than you. Because before that, I was looking on the internet, I was trying to self-diagnose.
Always a bad idea, isn't it?
Looking at pictures, looking at my bite, I was looking at images, I was looking at descriptions, and I really worried myself silly over it, to be honest with you. And then, but in a way, I'm glad that I did, because if I hadn't have been checking out different other images and different my symptoms and trying to connect them all together, and talking it through with my mum as well, who's doing exactly the same thing 200 miles away, that
you might not have linked it.
I might not have linked it, and that's where the problem then becomes really serious, when Lyme's disease goes unnoticed. So the key thing is definitely to have awareness of what symptoms to look for. If you're unsure, go get it checked, monitor it, take pictures of a bite, or just log down your symptoms. And then, because if it's caught early, supposedly that's okay, and it can be treated. It's when it's left that symptoms can progress.
Nell, stay with us, because I want to bring in Andrew Gold now, who is from Lyme Disease Action. As you listen to Nell's story there, Andrew, is this a pretty common story of how people discover that they've got Lyme disease?
Yeah, first of all, good morning, Chloe, and hello, Nell, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Hello.
Good. Hi. And to congratulate Nell on having done all the right things and being lucky enough to have a very classical presentation of this disease. So yes, I mean what we're hearing here is very typical of a classical presenration of Lyme. Somebody gets a bite, they notice the bite, that was really lucky, and they get a rash and some weird symptoms, and when they go to get medical help, the person on the other side of the desk says, "This sounds like Lyme disease," and without any blood test, prescribes the right antibiotics, and hey presto, fixed.
I know that you had Lyme disease yourself, didn't you? And it was more debilitating for you.
Yes, ultimately it ended up with me having to retire early on medical grounds, but that was partly because even though I was in a place where Lyme disease was well understood in the Highlands of Scotland, I was unlucky to be seen by a couple of locum doctors first. So by the time I actually got diagnosed, it was well into my system, and I was very ill.
So what is the problem surrounding diagnosis? Is it that doctors don't have enough information about this and they need more training? Or is it that it's just an incredibly difficult disease to kind of pin down?
All of the above.
Right.
We have a problem with lack of awareness and knowledge within the general practitioner population. There are still doctors out there who will say to you, if you haven't been to America, you can't get this. And that's a fact. That does happen. But there is training out there. We ourselves paid for and produced an e-learning package with the Royal College of General Practitioners, which would help GPs to understand what Lyme looks like when they first get presented with it, if they haven't seen it. And unfortunately, the take-up on that has been pretty disappointing.
Andrew, just to clarify, you're not saying it's a fact that you can't get Lyme disease if you haven't been to America. You mean it's a fact that GPs believe that?
Yes, it is a fact that people, that the doctors, not everywhere, but some doctors still think you have to go to a place outside of this country to catch it. And you don't. You can get it in your back garden.
For you, Nell, had you ever heard of Lyme disease before?
Yes. I
was just asking Nell. Sorry, Andrew.
No,
that's right. No, that's right. I had seen something about it, whether it was articles in the media, but I wasn't, overly aware of the full symptoms, or I thought probably, it wouldn't be something that I would ever get, or, I just feel like I was aware of it.
And I was saying to you when you came in today that Matt Dawson, the former England rugby player, he, of course, was affected very badly by it last year. Do you now change your fitness regime, Nell, as a result? I mean, long grass is one area, obviously, where ticks can be quite prevalent.
Yes, because you only have to brush past. That's all it is, and so they can attach to clothing. So it's a real. It's not just about your skin. They can stick to your clothing. Even they need to be washed thoroughly afterwards. They even suggest to put in a tumble dryer to kill any kind of any kind of tick or bug or bacteria on your clothing. So the more information out there, the better, and then people can really thorough about how they treat their skin and their clothing when they're going outside and afterwards. But and it's dogs as well. Like his pets. If there was a program on TV just recently that I watched, and they were doing tests with a white sheet, just brushing alongside the grass that's just by the path. So it wasn't even in the grass that's sort of way over by the trees. It was actually just off the side of the path where the dogs kind of tend to stroll along, and he collected various little insects on the white sheet, and some of them were ticks.
I watched that as well. I think it was Country File.
Yes.
It's on the BBC.
Yes.
No, it really did bring it home. So Andrew, where are the places? Are we literally talking about if you're walking around in long grass, or can it be other places as well that we should be aware?
Yes, you should be aware, even in an urban park, if there's long grass in particular, a bit that's not mown very well. Richmond Park is quite well known for having ticks, but because ticks will attach to any available host, you could get a tick coming into your garden on a stray cat, a hedgehog, flying in on a bird. So even if you live in town, a tick could arrive into your back garden. So the advice would be, don't sit indoors and ignore the countryside. Go out, enjoy it. Just be aware. Check yourself over when you come in. Look in all the places where ticks might hide, like nice dark damp spots under your arms and other parts of your body. Just be aware. And then if you do begin to feel unwell, what Nell did, was absolutely right. She took a photograph of the rash that appeared. She kept a diary of symptoms, although in some circumstances that might mark her down as neurotic when she gets to see the GP, which is what happened to me. So, you arm yourself with as much information as possible. That's what you need to do. And
that's the most important thing. Listen, thank you so much for coming on to explain that to us. Thank you to Nell McAndrew for coming in to speak to us here, and also Andrew Gold, who is from Lyme Disease Action.